So good morning, everybody. We have today a 1 hour webinar. Our webinar is an extract of a 2 days course that we have built in how to lead remote teams to high performance. Before I start, let me just introduce myself. My name is Thais. I built my career in human resources and change management in companies like Johnson & Johnson, Citibank, Oracle, UniCredit. I have been working in transformation projects, digitalization, implementation of Agile, or Agile, depending on how you pronounce that, change management, performance management. So I have been working in, especially in times of crisis. I was in the internet bubble in 2000. I was in the financial crisis in 2007. So I've been in healthcare in the very high regulated changes that happened recently. Today, I'm the chief researcher at Performance Factor. We have done lots of research in terms of what are the levers that impact performance, especially in teams, not only individuals, but also in teams, especially in times of crisis and ambiguity. So when organizations are going through massive changes like mergers and acquisitions, implementation of Agile, digitalization, or any kind of change, this is where our study focuses on how to improve performance of teams. So, as I said to you, this course is an extract. I'm not being able to move the slides, just a second. Yes, here I am. So, this webinar today is a extract from a masterclass that is called Leading High Performance Remote Teams. It's as I said, a 2 days course. It's a 2 morning course. It's a total of 8 hours. I will talk a little bit more about this when we get to the topics. So when we talk about high performance teams, and when we talk about virtual teams especially, if I would have 3 minutes to explain what I think about that, and I had only one slide, I would give this one to you. Virtual teams, remote teams, work from home, dispersed teams, all these different names and styles of working remotely are different and very similar at the same time to teams that work face-to-face in the traditional way. But what is different? The difference is everything that is built naturally in a face-to-face traditional team, like building collaboration, building the trust that is this basic structure of relationships. So collaboration, performance, partnership, innovation, all these things based on relationships in a traditional setting, it happens naturally. More you relate to people, more you experience things with people, more your collaboration, your relationship will grow. In virtual teams, it's different. In virtual teams, when I say virtual teams, please read remote teams, dispersed teams. They are interchangeable for our discussion today. So when we are talking about remote teams, all these natural things have to be a result of an effort and intention. So they will not happen naturally. So trust will not be built naturally because it lacks the constant interaction of people. So you have to intentionally put effort to develop trust, develop relationships that will end up on building collaboration. The second word that I would use is structure. More structure you create for a remote team, better the dynamic of the team will evolve, their relationship and their performance. When I say structure, I'm not talking about creating bureaucracy, but creating the boundaries and the rules where people can't move inside without touching areas like going outside the values, going outside the objectives or the strategy of the organization. And the third word I would use to describe remote teams would be remove. Sorry, it's wrote there remote blocks, but it's remove blocks. Leaders, especially in remote teams, should focus a lot of their leadership efforts on removing the blocks that the team will encounter because they are not working face to face. An example, for instance, teams that were requested to move to work remotely now with the pandemic that all of us are facing, they should be directly connecting with their internal customers. So leaders should connect with the team's internal customers to make clear how the work will be developed, what is the difference from when they were working face to face and now they are working remotely. So if I would have an elevator pitch of what is high performance, how to build high performance in virtual teams, I would say 3 areas of focus for leaders. Intention, do things intentionally, not leave things for natural evolution. Create structure so the team will not get into the chaos of understanding what can be done, what we cannot be done, and what is non-negotiables, and remove the blocks that will happen because of the different way of working, which is virtually or dispersed. I had prepared this webinar in preparation for our 2 days course, masterclass, because I had received lots of questions from my clients. And what I've done today, I had blocked these, I had organized these questions in blocks in a way that we can go through the things that are top of mind of managers that are managing remote teams today. So the first question that is the most asked is about how to improve team performance. And I have one good and one bad news about this. You cannot improve performance. Performance is an intangible. It's an outcome of a lot of efforts. So you cannot improve performance in say, but you can improve the behaviors that will drive into the performance up, or if you don't work on them, down. So what are these behaviors? So let's first define what is performance so we are on the same page. So I'm talking about performance, the ability to solve problems, to create innovation, and create new opportunities. And so what you want in your virtual team is to improve their ability to solve problems, innovate more, create new solutions, and new opportunities, new business opportunities. And what are the behaviors that are behind high performance in remote teams? There are a lot of behaviors that help teams to improve their performance, but in what regards to virtual teams, to remote teams, dispersed teams, collaboration, team learning, and engagement are the most important. So while it's important also for face-to-face teams, for virtual teams, collaboration, team learning, and engagement are crucial. So what we are talking about? We are talking about, for instance, collaboration is everybody having the same understanding, the entire team having the same understanding where they are going, what is the strategy, and what are the priorities. If you have a highly collaborative team that do not understand or have different understanding of what are the strategic priorities for the organization and for your team, you will not have high performance as a result. You will have chaos because they will be all trying to do something but in different directions. And it's very easy for remote teams to misunderstand what are the goals or have partial understanding of the goals. Another component of collaboration is relationships and psychological safety. Relationships is highly based in trust. You have a better relationship with people that you trust better. And psychological safety is the ability that people have, they feel comfortable to show they are vulnerable without being fearing to be ashamed or punished for that. So it's the ability of people to say, well, I didn't understand that. Can you help me understand? Can you explain it better? Or to say, I don't know this. I need to learn this new thing. I don't know it. Or to say, I don't agree. I have a different idea about this. Psychological safety is the environment where you can do these things without being ashamed in front of others. Nobody will tell you your idea is stupid. How come you don't know this? You are supposed to know this, or you will not be punished in terms of nobody will be talk bad about you. Nobody will look at your performance differently because you say the things the way they are. What is different in collaboration in traditional teams and in remote teams is that, as I said before, in face-to-face teams, the relationship is built about the social, is built on top of social interaction, collaborative work, networking. So more you share experiences, as I said before, more you share experiences with your teammates in the office, more your relationship grow because your trust grow. And it's not, I'm not talking about the opportunities that you have to only work collaboratively, or for instance, have both of you and a colleague or a bigger team working in the same project. I'm talking about those moments that you are in the coffee machine and you exchange some ideas, personal things, but then it gets to what you think about projects, and you exchange ideas, your ideas grow. This is the kind of relationship that I'm talking about that helps collaboration in face-to-face teams. When you are in remote teams, you don't have the opportunity to be as frequently as you should with your teammates. So although it's best practice to start to launch a virtual team or a dispersed team with a face-to-face meeting and have regular meetings face-to-face, it's not as frequent as it is in a traditional team working in the same office. And what is interesting is that research had demonstrated that trust in dispersed teams is not built upon the relationship in, say, the exchange, the social interaction, but it's built in a complete different factor, which is reliability, consistency, and responsiveness. So what research had discovered, and one of these research is made by Google on their on projects to try to understand what is the difference between high performance teams and low performance teams. And reliability is one key topic to have people developing the trust that will be the basis for the relationships that then will be the basis for the collaboration. So as I said before, reliability, consistency, and responsiveness in remote teams play the same factors that social interaction and shared experiences play in face-to-face teams. And what is this reliability, consistency, responsiveness? It's about, for instance, a teammate that does what she or he said they are going to do. So I can rely on you because by our previous experiences, I know that you will deliver what you're saying that you're going to deliver. I know that you will be responsible every time that I say this thing is urgent, I need this from you, you will do that. And if you are not able to do that, you will call me and let me know why and work together in a new way to resolve my problem. Reliability is something that is highly important, not only for team members, but also in those jobs where your job is dependent on the outcome of someone else's job. So if I am in the value chain next you, meaning my work depends on the input from your work, reliability then it's even more important. Okay, we know that. And how do you build reliability in order to build trust, in order to build better collaboration, better relationships, and better collaboration? So it's not that simple. It's not just say people, you need to be responsive to your teams. But the first thing you have to do is to make your team aware that collaboration will impact performance, relationships will impact collaboration, and trust will impact collaboration and performance. And the best thing is to tell them what is the role of reliability and responsiveness in the dynamics of a remote team. So the first thing is training, awareness on how do you build trust. And it's interesting because sometimes we take for granted, many times we take for granted that everybody knows these things. And in reality, everybody knows these things in a helicopter view. They don't know that deeply, and most of the time they don't know the impact of these things. So awareness training is very important. You can do that formally. You can hire someone to train your team. You can go to your HR department, but not necessarily you need to have a very structured training. You can, for instance, initiate the debate about what is the impact of reliability on the relationships and what it means, reliability for each of your team. So the second tip that I would give to you after making your team, making every single member of your team understand what is expected from them in terms of reliability and why it's important, is to have some kind of co-creation exercises where you can create, for instance, team rules, team norms. For instance, what is expected in terms of email response? If a teammate sends an email to another and 2 days after still did not receive an answer, is this expected? Is this always unacceptable? How do you make your colleague know that your email is urgent? Why do we use email instead of picking up the phone and calling people? What is important here is create team norms. What are the rules that the team will follow? What is acceptable, what is not acceptable? But what is important here is the co-creation, because it's impose a team norm, impose rules in a team. When you're talking about let's say more intangible pieces like your reliability, responsiveness, the emotional part related to that, it doesn't work if you impose that in the team. So co-creation, using some kind of, for instance, you can use design thinking. We do a lot of that in Perform Factor, facilitating design thinking sessions to co-create solutions, co-create rules, co-create processes. What is important here is that the team feels that they're being heard. It's important what they think, so they can co-create together the tools that will help the team to improve collaboration. So another topic that we said that is very important on high performance in remote teams is team learning. What is team learning? Team learning is different from individual learning. Individual learning, you acquire new skills. So you have, let's say you are a basket, an empty basket, and you put in new skills, new knowledge. When I talk about team learning, the difference is that you build your knowledge upon someone else's knowledge. So you don't start with an empty basket. You start with someone that knows something, that shares that with you, and then you transform that with some insights and you add to the other person. So there's a lot of knowledge sharing behind that. There is a lot of mutual engagement in the team learning, and it's necessary a coordinated effort. So naturally in face-to-face teams, the team learning again happens naturally and happens because of the interaction, because of the continuous communication. In a remote team, it's a little bit more, you struggle more. You have to have intention, you have to put efforts for team learning to happen, because we know the shared experiences are different. So what you have to have knowledge sharing too. You have to have common goals. you have to have a place for virtual dialogue. And what is very interesting, again, research made by universities and also by big organizations, is that psychological safety improve learning. So the ability to say, I don't know this, can you teach me that? Or I think you don't get the point, can I give you some tips? Having the security of doing these things without being pointed or separated by the team helps a lot on team learning, because you are more open to what others will be showing you, and you can accept that. You don't have to resist saying, oh, I know that it already, because it's okay to say I don't know. So psychological safety improves a lot team learning. Another thing that improves a lot team learning is diversity. I'm not talking about diversity of gender here. I'm talking about diversity of experiences. Sorry. Diversity of experiences. People that had worked in small organizations, in big organizations, in traditional organizations, in more agile organizations, people that are from different businesses. Cross-functional team learning is so rich because of the diversity that happens there. So what you can do to improve team learning? What you can do, you can give problems, issues, or challenges to subgroups of your team. So for instance, you can pick up 2 or 3 people and say, we have this problem here. I have done that in the past. We were, for instance, we had policies and processes that were completely different in different locations worldwide. And we had to harmonize these processes, and there was a lot of resistance from the team that was, each of them working in a different country were saying, well, my process is the best one. We should assume my process worldwide. So what we have done, we had pick up one of these processes, pick up 3 or 4 or 5 people from different locations, one from Asia, one from US, one from South America, put them together and say, you have the goal now to come up with a global process. You have to solve this problem. You have to do that together. And as a parenthesis there, it was a very interesting process this subgroup went through, because in the beginning, they start with the previous behavior. So they were saying, my process is the best one and it has to be assumed worldwide. But then there was not a manager in that sub team, and the feedback from the peers of that person was saying, well, it doesn't apply to my country. It doesn't apply to the regulations of my country. It doesn't apply to the expectations of the customers in my country. It doesn't apply to the way we do business, to the culture of our organization. It was interesting because they then pass to the next phase. They pass to, okay, it seems it doesn't glue with other locations. Let me understand what are the needs of these other locations that are justifying people say, my process doesn't apply. So, this is where team learning happens. I put an idea, someone else gives feedback, and then I try to understand why the idea was not positive. So sharing a goal to solve problems is very, very rich in terms of helping people to develop team learning. Another thing, as I said before, it's important to have virtual dialogue space, some technology that allow people to dialogue, to have insights together, and have also technology to share knowledge. It's important to have a place where you store the learning, store the insights that your team will have, to avoid to recreate the wheel once the same problem happens in the future. So this is very important to have the ability to always learn on top of what is common learning already, instead of beginning from zero. So we will cover in more details in our masterclass, our 2 days masterclass. This is the agenda of the masterclass that you're seeing, and we have several occasions where we will talk more about what can be done to improve team learning, collaboration, and performance. Let me give you, just stop to go around and check if everybody's fine, the sound is okay, you're seeing the presentation, or do you have questions? Would you please unmute and let me know if everything is okay for you so I can go ahead? Okay, I'm not receiving any input, but I'm receiving some messages from the chat. Oops, sorry for that. So let me just check here. Any other messages? Okay, thank you very much. Everybody's saying that it's okay. So let me proceed. Another question. So it's not turning. Yeah, another question. Well, other questions that I put together. So this is something that happens frequently in the companies. Is the mentality of people is split about remote work, virtual teams are positive, and oh, maybe it's not. So this is a question that summarize all the questions that I have behind them. So in my company, there are managers trying to micromanage remote teams and getting unmotivated employees. So they're trying to follow each step of the employees in the remote team, and people are just responding that with disengagement. And this person is still saying, I saw managers trusting too much their remote teams and getting low productivity and unhappy customers. Where is the balance? Where is the balance where I can the team let go and not suffer the down on productivity or in customer satisfaction? The first thing that I have to say about this is that if you don't trust an employee, will bring the best performance he can, that he will be doing all he can to achieve goals and make customer happy, this person should not work remotely. This person is not adequate to work remotely because it's implicit. Working remotely, you have to have a bias towards action very high. You have to be someone that, is up and go all the time. You have to be reliable. You have to be accountable. You have to have a team that trusts that people will do their best in that setting. Otherwise, remote work is not for you. Meaning you have to maybe move people to work in different positions, but why? Where is the balance between trusting people and ensuring productivity and customer satisfaction will go high? When you think about remote teams, dispersed teams, there's something that is kind of schizophrenic, because you say you have to be agile and you have to have structure. If you have a team, a remote team that has lots of structure and low agility, you will have too much bureaucracy. You have a team that will be doing what is written and will not take the initiative to do anything on top of that. If you have a team that is very agile, high in agility, but they don't have too much structure, they will get into chaos, because there is no rule, and one of the rules that doesn't exist is I will do what is best for me, I will do what is in my head. So what I'm talking about here, when I talk about agility, I'm talking about the ability to respond to requirements of the customers or requests from the company very fast and effectively, with innovative solutions, solving problems very fast, and identifying new opportunities. So a remote team needs to have these skills. On the other hand, your team has to be also well structured. You have to have efficiency in terms of having the right tools, having the right rules, having the right technology, having the right governance. For instance, if you have a remote team and you don't have company policy about remote work, you as a manager will find yourself dealing with a lot of exceptions all the time and interpretations of what has to be done and not done as a remote team. So you need to have a work from home or a dispersed work policy. In our masterclass, we have a lot of templates to offer you. So if you don't have that, you can work on that. If you have one, you can see what is the best practice of bigger companies, so you can even yourself or who is responsible for that or in your organization to improve these policies. Or for instance, the use of technology. A team that is remote, what is allowed in terms of technology, so you can ensure that all the applications, all the tools that you're using are compatible, or in terms of security, if you have a remote team member that works in a customer facility, what are the rules in terms of technology for that customer? Another thing that we take for granted, that usually in face-to-face teams we do that very well, is to have very clear roles and responsibilities. So most of the companies, when you join the company, you receive a document that is your description, your job description. So you have there what is the goal of your job, how performance will be measured, usually what kind of goals you're going to have. Not all the companies have that, but a lot of companies have, and this is best practice. When it gets to remote teams, that means just you receive a piece of paper, but you don't have the opportunity, the frequent opportunity to discuss, especially with your manager or compare with your colleagues, what is the meaning of that and where your role intersects other roles. And when you are in an office, it's visible, it's there. If you're doing the same thing that your colleague is doing, you will discover naturally that. Or if there is something that is not being done, someone will point that out for you. Unfortunately, this process of self-regulation in remote teams does not happen that easily. So usually, you don't have too much time. You don't want to have every day 3 hours call with your direct reports or have long team meetings. So this kind of discussions, what is my responsibility, what is your responsibility, and where does it match, doesn't happen frequently. And people have lots of questions. Sometimes they don't even have questions, which is worse than having questions, because that means that you just make assumptions and go ahead. An example of that, another team that I had worked at was, it was an organization where they have regional and vertical structures. So you would have, for instance, a global function like IT, then you would have a country function as IT, and then you would have the local team. The intersection of these three groups was a mess, was really a nightmare, because especially in what regards to who owns the customer, it can get to a lot of misinterpretation and misunderstanding, with the risk of having some customers uncovered or other customers with some complaints like, oh my God, there it comes the bus from that company that has 10 people coming together, or I received thousands of calls from the same company from different people. So what we have done here was being very specific on creating structure, putting the team together, again, using design thinking, because for co-creation, I don't think there's anything else that is better than that. And people discussing, okay, if I have a local customer with these characteristics, who owns this customer? What does it mean owning the customer? We had used basic tools like, the RACI model, responsible, accountable, informed decisions, so on and so forth. But what is important there is to create this clarity. Another thing that is an example of creating structure is to make what I call the virtual proof for processes. So if you have a process that works very well, traditionally, meaning face to face, that doesn't mean it will work the same virtually. So another way of using design thinking is to put people together and try to understand what are the pieces of that process that works well virtually, what do not work well, and how you can change that. But it's again the team that is proposing this change. If you want to increase the adherence of people to any kind of change initiative. If you are implementing digitalization, Internet of Things, if you're working in the in implementation agile, or if you are in mergers and acquisitions and you need people to adopt the change that is being proposed, design thinking is a great tool, because it's where people feel they are heard, their ideas count, they understand where the ideas are not, do not fit the strategy or the priorities for that moment. But most importantly, design thinking puts the customer inside the perspective of the discussions. It's not more what I think versus what you think, but it's what is the best for the customer? What does the customer think about this? By the way, customer, let me ask you real time, what is your feedback about the ideas that we have? So this balance between structure and agility, in agility, for instance, how much people use experimentation and iteration. We don't have time, we don't have the resources to discover that an idea or a solution that a team is putting through does not work after 6 months of implementation. And this is where design thinking and agile work very well together, because it's the same principle. You create an idea, you create a prototype, you get feedback from the customer, and you fail fast, and you fail not expensive, and then you iterate your idea, so on so far, in a way that if things will not work, they not work very fast. That means they not work cheap. You don't spend time and resources doing that in the traditional waterfall process, that you just deliver to the customer what is ready, a complete solution, and then the customer say, oops, it's not what I wanted. Then you go back everything and start from scratch. Agile teams, agility in remote teams, and also in face-to-face teams does differently. It's very close to the customers in a way that you can solve the problems and identify opportunities very fast. So this is the balance that I say. You have to be agile, but inside a structure where it's very clear for you what are the non-negotiables, it's very clear what is the strategic priorities for your organization. So you are fast, you innovate, you solve problems, but inside the boundaries. That is what is the mission or the values for the company. Another piece of balance that you have to have, and we touch about this, is about collaboration and communication. Communication is something that is crucial for remote teams, and communication is not only having the right tools to communicate, email or video conference, but also adopting openness, transparency. If you have a remote team, imagine that you are working in a different time zone and far away from headquarters, and there's a big change happening in the entire organization right now. Or you're changing business model, or you are integrating with another company, or you just launch another product. The speed of the news that arrives to the virtual teams to the remote teams is very different from the people that are there in the headquarters with the CEO, with the marketing and sales organization, with product development, so on and so forth. And first, you have to be intentional. Remember, we said before, you have to be intentional. You have to think communication. It's not just a matter of making a meeting or picking the phone for a call. It has to be intentional. What I want to deliver, what is the message that I want to deliver in this call today? What is the conversion that I want to have in terms of what kind of adherence I'm trying to buy from my team? And transparency plays a key role here. If you allow the corridor meal, the rumors, to be faster and more transparent than your communication, your remote team will never be as exceptional performer as you think. First of all, because one of the crucial things we said before is trust. Transparency is a basic condition for you to have trust in your teams, to improve relationships, cooperation, collaboration, and high performance. So if what you can do in terms of communication, you can, for instance, be faster than the corridor meal. You have to be very transparent. If you don't know an answer for a question of your team members, you say, I don't know. Remember the psychological safety. Also, the leader has to role model psychological safety and say, I don't know the answer of this, I will search for it. Or be transparent and say, this is confidential information, especially in the arena of mergers and acquisitions. There's a lot of information that cannot be shared before some specific deadlines. So you have to be very transparent and say, it's confidential. This is why it's confidential. I have a letter of intention that the company had signed it. And this is when I will be able to give you information. So the role of communication in enhancing relationships, building trust, creating proximity, and impacting collaboration is also something that has to be balanced for you to trust people that are out there. They know you have the structure, so you can trust they will be playing inside the structure. They are agile, you know, they will play inside the structure, but they will not have to ask blessing for you all the time. So they can be fast responding to problems for the customers. And just a parenthesis, delegation is very important here, because you cannot, you can't assume, you can't think that someone will be fast in solving problems to the customers if they have to go through a chain of approvals and cannot take decisions. So you have to delegate decisions related to customers for those that are in front of the customer. So all of these things, yeah, are a balance. What is the right recipe? It doesn't exist a right recipe for everybody. It's the right recipe for your organization, for your team. Because in terms of levels of agility, levels of structure, levels of open communication and collaboration, each team is different. So when we in Perform Factor, we work in organization to help them to improve the performance, for instance, of remote teams, the first thing that we do is try to understand, is try to make the team aware what is the level of agility that they have today in this structure that is needed for that level, to be balancing that level. Again, can I just check if everybody is okay, if everything is fine, hearing me well? If you have comments, oh, push your laptop screen down. We see half of you. Oh, sorry. Is it better now? I'm not seeing myself. I think it is who had said that. Vasilis. Is it better? Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Sorry, I was not seeing your comment before. So let me go ahead. We just covered this, the virtual proof of processes, the agility, iteration, continuous learning. Portable technology is something that is interesting. We think sometimes that conference call, email, and telephone is what we need to be agile, to have high performance, to have high collaboration. It's not enough. I think lots of you know that, but I think it's important to reinforce, because not everybody is has the time to think about these details. In our today's masterclass, we will cover a lot. We will give you a lot of tools that companies are using, technology tools to improve collaboration and improve communication. But what is important for you to think is that in remote teams, the old good eyes in the eyes, hearing nonverbal cues or seeing nonverbal cues is still the best thing to build relationships and collaboration. So if you cannot be face-to-face, be face-to-face as much as you can, but use a video conference. Today we have so many things that are available, Zoom, a lot of things. So be more personal, be more video conference with your team as much as you can. And if you are a tip that I like to give people, because not everybody, it's counterintuitive. When you are doing conference calls, ask people to not mute. Sometimes you have a lot of background noise, but this brings life, brings the condition that people that are working together. Because what is important is that you don't miss these cues that are not on the speech of people. So laughs or expressions of surprise. When you have muted, people don't have this feedback. They don't know how they are impacting others. So it's important to live with some background noise in conference calls, but have the ability to have reactions. Also, when people know that they are not muted, they tend not to do something else at the same time that they are hearing a conference call. So it's very good also to keep people tuned, connected, and with their attention in the conference call. So we had also in our master classes, the agenda again, a lot of topics that we had, we cover that we had just mentioned here, like agile remote teams infrastructure, and the key challenges that people face in remote teams and how to address them. The next question is not a question, it's just a comment. It's a statement that a lot of my clients do, especially related to the pandemic crisis now, is I wish we got prepared before. Because most of teams are used to have some work done from home, some conference calls, some video conferencing. A lot of them work from different countries, different time zones, but not 100% of the time, and not with the need of keeping productivity in a moment of high ambiguity. Nobody knows what is going to happen next month, for how long the situation is going to happen, if the way we work will be the same after the experience that humankind had together. So there's a lot of uncertainty here. And what I say to them is that you have to plan remote work for a long term, because there are a lot of tips in the environment that tell us that this is coming to stay. So if you look, for instance, I have some data that makes the case for us. If you look at the birth rate in Europe, it's about 1.59%. And you have here in the slide 3 countries. You have France, Italy, and Sweden. To have a sustainable birth rate, meaning that you have enough people to work in your company in the future, it should be around 2.1, 2.3. We are an average of 1.59. And you can see in the graphics here from 1961 what is happening. So you can expect that in some years, you will not have as much experts, talents in the market for you to hire. So you have to be more flexible in terms of, for instance, have people working from home, or people working part-time, or people not being an employment contract with your organization, because you have to be able to accommodate alternative ways of working, because you will desperately need people. If they will be sitting in your city or not, it will not matter. You will need talent, you will need experts. Another thing that you can see, and this information comes from Deloitte, from a survey done by Deloitte, is the rate of open positions filling. For companies with less than 250 employees, it's around 43%. So that means that 43% of the positions open in an organization are not filled from one month to the other. You can imagine what is the impact. Actually, I want to make some calculations to add to our master class to be more precise in terms of specific countries and specific markets. It's almost half of your positions are not filled, meaning the productivity, the impact on your customers, the impact on your internal teams that they are overwhelmed because other positions are not filled is huge. In companies that are higher than 250 employees, it's around 67%. It's not 100%, as it says here, something wrong in my Excel. So it's a 67%, it's even worse. So this is another tip that is saying that we have to be very flexible as organizations to accept different types of talents in employment contracts. Talking about employment contract, the number of freelancers in Europe had doubled between 2000 and 2014. In the most recent years, it's higher than the employment growth in UK, France, and Netherlands. And inside these freelancers, part-time workers are the type of workers that are growing more. So people that work in the morning for one company, in the afternoon for another company, or some hours per week in one company, some hours per week in another company, they certainly will not be sitting, most of the time, they will not be sitting in their work company facilities. They will be working from home or from another location or for a customer site, but they will not be changing during the day from time to time, from one office to another office. And the last thing that I would like to put on the plate for you is that people that are working from home today, 90% of the people that are working from home today are planning to keep on working from home for the rest of their careers. 61% of the people that are working in a company today, they are considering or would leave because of lack of flexibility. This is also a source. It's a company called FlexJobs that is specifically making surveys about the research about this, what is happening in the work from home world. In Europe, 5% of the people between 15 and 64 years old had already worked from home. Italy, it's around 3.5. So what I'm saying here is a lot of people had experience. Now a lot of people is experienced even more because of the situation that we're living in. Most of the people that experience work from home, they don't want to go back and work in an office, at least not 100% of their time. So all of these things together, they are saying you have to plan for remote work, plan for work from home in this pandemic for a long period, not because the pandemic is going to last forever, hopefully not, will not last for a long period, but because this is the trend, and more flexible you are, more you will be able to tap people from different locations. So think about artificial intelligence. People that are studying artificial intelligence, going out of the university right now or will be in the next years, they are leaving their university already employed because there's a desperate need of people that is expert in artificial intelligence. Unless you live very close to artificial intelligence university, you will be facing a big problem if you are not offering the opportunity for people to work alternatively. And alternatively means working from different locations and working with different kinds of contracts, and remote work is a big piece of that. So what is being discussed recently is about how do we enhance work portability. So what is work portability? Is a way of working that it doesn't matter where you are sitting. What is important is what you produce, what is the outcome that you do. You can sustain operations, you can sustain the speed of response, the agility, and have holistic solutions without necessarily being sitting in an office. So what you sell, work is not defined by where you are sitting, what place you are, but what you do. So a lot of things come behind. For instance, how do you pay people instead of paying for the time that they are in the office? How do you pay people in countries where the legislation still are talking about hours per week, hours per month in terms of remuneration? Or how do you enable innovation in problem solving in situations where the best people, as I said before, are not necessarily working in the same location? So what we talk a lot about this in our masterclass, in our 2 days masterclass, because there's a lot of virtual resources, there's a lot of technology and tools and behaviors and management practices that you can use to enhance the work portability in your organization. One of them is culture, because not all organizations, excuse me, not all organizations are confident. Remember the previous question that someone had asked me, how can I trust that people will be working when they are not under my eyes? And so there's a lot of things that can be done to improve learning, to improve upskilling in a context of work portability. So again, in our agenda, we discussed this a lot. And also one of the things that we discussed, we had created a methodology to calculate return on investment and return on value on remote work. That helps a lot people that need to convince their leaders or their organizations to allow more people working remotely. So what is the return on investment in terms of how much it will cost, how much you can get, but most is what is the return on the value? What value do you get back when you have high performance remote teams? The investment is not high, but the value that you return that returns to you on high performance from remote teams is huge. How do you demonstrate that? Or when you have to make decisions, for instance, there are some activities. Let's put one thing. The best thing is to work face-to-face. So if we could, working face-to-face is the best way to improve performance, but it's not possible all the time. So how you make decisions, which pieces of the work your remote team has to do face-to-face to improve the outcomes of this activity, and which it's better to do remotely because you can tap more in the diversity of the people. So we will help you make these calculations on to support your decisions. It doesn't take decisions for you, but support your decisions. Also choosing what this technology that fit for purpose, what we are trying to achieve, and also how do you hire and develop people to work remotely adequately. So let me see if there are any questions around, if anybody would like to make comments before I close. Yes, I have a question. Yes, I'm talking now about the masterclass. So our masterclass, as I said, is at 2 mornings. You have 4 hours in one day, 4 hours in the other day. It could be 2 afternoons, 1 morning, 1 afternoon. And what we are going to do is, the difference is that when we've done this webinar today, talking about questions that I received from other people, in the masterclass, we will bring the topics that you are facing today in your work and discussing and bringing solutions to them and working on bringing the performance of your team to an even higher level. But we are talking about specific case. We are customizing the discussions, customizing the tools that we have, customizing the solutions for the situations that the participants are living. So we will be talking about what are the practices that can be used and which are the practices that better fit your teams. You will work on leveraging the strengths and the diversity of your team. What are the things that you can use to help the entire team, some specific topics of your team to help the others. We will work in effective communication. We will work on how to engage geographically dispersed teams. And when I talk dispersed teams, what we do here in our masterclass, we are talking about teams that can be teams of your direct reports, but can be teams where your team work with customers. It's also a topic for discussing on high performance. It's not a matter of individual performance, but it's the performance of that group of you, for instance, consultant providing service to a customer and working together with the people in the customer's team. So it's not, when I talk about dispersed team or remote teams in the masterclass, we will be really customizing the discussion for what are the kind of teams that you work. We will do some return on investment calculation. So this is what is an overview of the classes that we will have. So any comments and questions? If you would like to say anything, this is the time. We had just finished our content for today. So let me see if anybody else has questions. No? Okay. So thank you very much for the time. Thank you very much for joining me and hearing me. I hope you had found any topics that are of value for you that you can use. And again, if you want to work together or if you want just to exchange ideas, this is my email. You can find me here at alba.thais.pereira@performfactor.com. Even if you want to have an informal chat with me, it will be my pleasure. You can write me and we can set some time to speak. Okay? So guys, thank you very much again and stay safe. Take care of you and your family and all the best to you all. Thank you. Bye for now.